All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're digging into the latest quarterly results from Healthcare Global Enterprises Ltd, HCG.
Yeah,
They're a pretty major force in the Indian oncology market, and we've got a lot to unpack. So we've got their press release announcing the results, we've got the financial statements themselves, standalone and consolidated, and a really slick investor presentation.
yeah, a lot to work with. A lot of juicy details in that investor presentation. I was really impressed.
Yeah, we'll try and cut through the jargon, get to what really matters, see what we can glean about where HCG is headed, and maybe even what it means for Indian healthcare as a whole. So, you already know HCG is the biggest chain of cancer care hospitals in India, which is impressive in itself, but their investor presentation kicks off with a pretty stark fact. By 2025, 1 in 9 people in India could be facing cancer.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of people needing care.
That is huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely underscores the scale of the challenge, the need for quality care, and why a company like HCG is so important in this market.
Yeah, for sure. And they highlight that they've got 26 centers across 19 cities, making them the largest pan-India oncology chain. And they're not just present, they're actually holding leading positions in most of the cities they're in.
Yeah, they're not just gabbling, they're really a dominant player.
Right. Now, one thing that caught my eye in the presentation is this whole single specialty strategy. It seems like they're shifting away from being multi-specialty and really going all in on just cancer care.
Hmm.
Is that a common move? Is that something that's happening across healthcare in general?
It's interesting. It's definitely a deliberate choice on their part, and there's this quote from HCG's leadership that stood out to me. They basically say, like, if you want to be the best at fighting cancer, you got to specialize,
Hmm.
Don't spread yourself too thin. They even cite some published data showing that patients treated in dedicated cancer hospitals tend to have better outcomes.
Yeah, they actually cite a U.S. study that found that patients in these specialized cancer hospitals had significantly better survival rates than those in general hospitals. They're not messing around here. I guess it makes sense, though. If you've got a team completely focused on cancer care, everything from their tech to their expertise is going to be more, I don't know, hyper-focused.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everyone's immersed in the latest research, the most advanced treatments. Their entire world is oncology.
Yeah, it's like, comparing a general practitioner to a heart surgeon.
Right, right.
There's something as serious as a heart problem, you'd probably want the surgeon. So HCG is betting big on specialization. But we got to look at the bottom line, right? How's this strategy translating financially?
Well, their unaudited Q2 FY25 results, those show some really strong numbers. Revenue's up 14% year on year. Their adjusted EBITDA margin, we'll explain that in a sec, is up to 18.8%, and their profit after tax jumped a whopping 61% year on year.
Whoa, 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 hold up. Before we get too deep, break down this EBITDA thing for those of us who aren't, financial wizards.
Sure, sure. So EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's basically a way to measure a company's operating profitability. So how much money are they making from their core business? And that increase in their EBITDA margin means that they're becoming more efficient, more profitable in how they run things.
Gotcha. So they're making more money and doing it more efficiently. But what's actually driving that growth? Is it coming from all their centers equally?
Well, looking at the numbers, it seems like their established centers, those ones that have been around for a while, they're pulling a lot of weight. They showed 13% year-on-year revenue growth. Pretty solid.
Yeah, impressive. What about the newer ones, though, the ones still finding their feet?
Yeah, those are facing some challenges, especially places like South Mumbai and Kolkata. The investor presentation outlines some turnaround strategies for those locations.
We'll circle back to those challenges. But first, let's dig into what really makes HCG tick, beyond just the numbers. What are they doing that's unique, maybe even pushing the envelope in cancer care?
Well, one thing that really jumps out is their adoption of cutting-edge technology. They're constantly looking to bring the latest advancements to their patients.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, they were the first in India to introduce things like cyberknife, tomotherapy, which are really advanced forms of radiation therapy. And they're even using some AI-based systems to help with diagnostics and treatment planning.
Wow, so they're not shying away from the future of cancer care at all.
Not at all.
But technology is just one piece of the puzzle. What about the human element, How are they approaching patient care in a way that stands out?
That's where their multidisciplinary tumor board comes in. It's a really fascinating concept. Basically, they bring together a whole team of specialists, surgeons, oncologists, radiologists, pathologists, everyone, to create a truly personalized treatment plan for each patient.
So it's not just one doctor calling the shots, it's a whole team of experts working together. That sounds pretty amazing, but I'm curious, how does that work in practice?
Yeah, well, the investor presentation actually breaks it down. They have a regular schedule for these tumor board meetings where they review the patient's diagnosis, test results, discuss all possible treatment options, and then they come up with a plan that everyone agrees is the best course of action.
Hmm, a very collaborative, very patient-centric approach. Now, there's one more buzzword I keep seeing: precision medicine. What does that even mean when we're talking about cancer care?
So it's all about tailoring treatments to the individual patient, moving away from that one-size-fits-all model. HCG is using genomics and molecular diagnostics to identify specific genetic alterations in tumors, which can then be targeted with very precise therapies.
So they're not just treating cancer, they're treating your cancer based on its unique genetic makeup.
That sounds powerful. How common is that? Are they doing this for every single patient?
Well, according to their presentation, they found that 77% of their patients had actionable genetic alterations detected. Wow. Okay, so that's a huge percentage. It really shows you how committed they are to this personalized approach. But, all right, enough about all the fancy tech and approaches. Let's get back to some business moves. They recently announced an acquisition, MG Hospital in Visakhapatnam.
Right.
And from what I'm seeing in both the press release and the investor presentation, Visakhapatnam is a region with huge potential for growth in healthcare. Sounds like HCG is getting in early and positioning themselves in a market where the demand is high.
Definitely. And that region really highlights the demand-supply gap. The need for quality cancer care far outweighs the current options available.
Yeah.
So this acquisition, it allows HCG to tap into that unmet need and solidify their position in a key market.
Right, and they're not just talking about snapping up market share, they're also highlighting synergies, growth opportunities. What does all that mean in plain English?
Well, there's obviously financial benefits when you combine forces, but
Mm.
it also lets them streamline their operations, share expertise, potentially offer even more comprehensive care. It's a strategic play, for sure.
Okay, so HCG is investing in technology, they're personalizing treatment, and making strategic acquisitions. But they're also talking a lot about this digital transformation. Is this just a buzzword, or are they really doing something different here?
Oh, it's definitely more than just talk. I mean, their website is totally revamped. It's much easier to find information, book appointments online, and they've even got their own app, the HCZ Care app.
What can you do with that? Just book appointments.
You can, but they've also got access to home health services, which is really convenient. Plus, they're using data analytics in a smart way, managing their campaigns, tracking patient journeys, getting a better handle on their operations.
That's pretty forward thinking for a healthcare company, you know? You don't always see that. And their digital revenue, I mean, that's grown like 4.7 times from Q2 FY23 to Q2 FY25. Clearly, they're onto something here.
Absolutely. They're really serious about using tech to improve the patient experience, make things more efficient.
Yeah. Now, it's not all numbers and technology, though. They also highlight some really powerful patient testimonials in the presentation. One that really struck me was the one from Subhaseni Lenka,
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
a cancer survivor treated at HCG Panda Cancer Hospital. He talked about being, eternally thankful that the specialists at HCG were able to treat his condition the right way the first time. Powerful stuff.
It is. It really brings it home.
Yeah.
Reminds us that behind all these numbers and strategies, there are real people whose lives are being impacted.
Yeah, for sure. We've covered a lot already, but I think it's time to step back and look at HCG's financial performance over time. They've included some historical data in the investor presentation, and I'm really curious what story that tells.
Definitely a good place to pick up. See how their current performance fits into the bigger picture of their growth trajectory and what that might tell us about their future.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
So, looking at HCG's performance over time, one thing that really jumps out is their consistent profitability. Even while they're investing heavily in expanding their network, they've managed to stay in the black. And not just by a little bit, their revenue has grown at a compound annual growth rate of 15% over the past 5 years. And on top of that, they've also increased their EBITDA margin. Remember, that means they're getting more efficient and profitable as they go.
So they're not just growing for the sake of growing, they're focused on making smart investments and delivering returns. Now, they keep mentioning this ROCE thing in their presentation, return on capital employed. Can you break that down for us? Why should we even care about that?
ROCE is a really important metric for investors. It basically tells you how effectively a company is using its capital, its money, to generate profits. Think of it this way. If you invest money in a business, you want to see a good return on that investment, right?
Right.
So the higher the ROCE, the better that company is at using its resources to make money.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's HCG's ROCE looking like?
Well, their established centers are definitely the stars here, boasting an impressive ROCE around 21%, which is significantly higher than their overall ROCE of 10%, which is, dragged down a bit by those newer emerging centers we talked about.
Yeah, makes sense. Those emerging centers are still in their early stages.
Yeah.
Lots of upfront investments, still ramping up operations. It's like opening a new restaurant. It takes time to build up that loyal customer base and really become profitable.
Exactly. And HCG actually highlights that in the presentation. As these newer centers mature, their ROCE is expected to improve significantly. They even point to examples like their centers in Bangalore, which have shown a clear upward trajectory in ROCE as they become more established.
So it's a long game for them, focusing on building that sustainable profitability over time. That's got to be reassuring for investors. But what about their future plans? Where do they go from here?
Well, they've actually laid out a pretty clear value creation plan. It focuses on three key pillars: organic growth, by optimizing their existing centers, expanding into new cities with those greenfield projects, and then targeted acquisitions to really solidify their market presence.
So they're looking at growth from all angles, not just relying on one strategy. They also hint at some interesting opportunities in what they call complementary adjacencies.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a little? What does that even mean?
Think of it as expanding their ecosystem beyond just hospitals. Talking about things like establishing daycare centers, which can act as feeder systems for their main hospitals. They're also looking at diagnostics, clinical trials, pharmacy services.
So they're building a whole integrated network, offering a complete spectrum of cancer care. That's pretty ambitious. But going back to their acquisitions, do they have a track record of actually making these mergers work?
Well, they highlight some of their past acquisitions in the presentation, like HCC and Kodak, where they actually achieved really impressive revenue and EBITDA growth after the integration. So they seem to have a knack for identifying these promising targets and then integrating them effectively.
Okay, so they're growing, they're profitable, they've got a clear plan for the future. But what about this digital transformation goal? They want 25% of their revenue to come from digital channels within the next 3 to 5 years. That's a pretty bold target.
It is ambitious, but considering their digital revenue has already grown 4.7 times in just 2 years, it doesn't seem out of reach. They're clearly committed to making digital a core part of their business.
And it's not just about online appointments or virtual consultations. They're using data analytics to understand patient behavior, optimize their marketing, even get deeper insights into their own operations. It's about using technology to improve every aspect of the business.
Absolutely. They're even exploring AI, machine learning, to enhance diagnostics and make those treatment plans even more personalized. They're really pushing the boundaries here, but they're also being smart with their spending. They've got this carefully calibrated capital expenditure plan. It's designed to support their growth while still keeping their financials in check.
Okay, good to hear they're not just throwing money at every shiny new tech that comes along. What are their priorities then in terms of investments?
Well, they're really focusing on high-return projects, like those brownfield expansions in their existing centers. Those require less capital upfront and tend to offer faster returns.
So very strategic, focusing on investments that make financial sense and support their overall growth strategy.
Right, and they're also exploring innovative models like pay-per-use for equipment. That allows them to access advanced technology without having to tie up a bunch of capital up front.
Kind of like subscribing to software instead of buying it outright.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense, especially in healthcare, where technology is constantly evolving. Okay, so we've covered HCG's financial performance, their growth strategy, their approach to technology, their commitment to patient care. They seem to be firing on all cylinders, but are there any potential challenges, risks, things we should be watching out for?
That's a great question. There are definitely a few things that stand out. First, their aggressive growth strategy comes with inherent risks.
Like what?
Well, integrating acquisitions can be tricky. They need to make sure those new centers are operating smoothly, efficiently, and that they're able to maintain that same level of quality care across the entire network.
Right, acquiring a hospital is one thing, but making it a successful part of the HCG family, that's another.
Exactly. And then there's the competitive landscape. It's constantly evolving. New players are emerging, existing players are upping their game. HCG needs to stay ahead of the curve, in terms of technology, innovation, patient experience to really maintain their leadership.
It's not just about what they've done so far, it's about their ability to adapt as the market changes. Anything else jump out at you?
Well, their digital transformation goals, as ambitious as they are, they also come with their own set of challenges. They need to make sure they're investing in the right technologies, that they can attract and retain the right talent to actually drive those digital initiatives
Hmm?
and, seamlessly integrate digital into every aspect of their operations.
It's like they're building a plane while they're flying it. Pretty impressive, but also potentially risky. But, when you think about the scale of the problem they're tackling, this growing need for quality cancer care in India, it's encouraging to see a company like HCG taking such a comprehensive and forward-thinking approach.
I agree. They've shown a real commitment to patient care, a willingness to embrace technology, a focus on financial sustainability. That's a powerful combination.
So for someone like you trying to understand the Indian healthcare market, HCG's journey really offers a compelling case study.
Definitely.
Let's go back to that single specialty strategy for a second,
Okay.
because I'm still curious about its broader implications. Do you think this is a trend we're going to see more of in India or even globally?
That's a fascinating question, one that deserves further exploration.
Well, let's explore it. What are your thoughts on the future of specialized healthcare?
Well, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, will we see more healthcare providers moving away from that multi-specialty approach
Yeah.
and really focusing in on specific areas? I mean, the data is pretty clear that specializing in cancer care leads to better outcomes for patients.
Hmm.
When you have that concentrated expertise, all those resources dedicated to just one thing, it makes sense, right?
Right. But there has to be a counter argument. Yeah. Not everyone lives near a specialized hospital, especially in a country as big and diverse as India.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There are definitely some trade-offs. Access is a huge one.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, a multi-specialty hospital might be their only option,
Hmm.
even if it means, potentially compromising on that level of specialized care.
And I guess you could argue that having all those different specialties under one roof, maybe that actually streamlines things for the patient, allows for a more, I don't know, holistic approach. It's not always just about the disease, it's about the whole person, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really important point. And it's something HCG actually acknowledges in their presentation. They talk about like the importance of a multidisciplinary approach, even within their specialized setting. So even though they're focused on cancer, they're still bringing together different specialists to create those really personalized treatment plans.
So it sounds like finding the right balance is key here. Maybe it's not about choosing one model over the other, but figuring out how to best integrate specialization into a broader, more comprehensive healthcare system.
Yeah, I think that's a really insightful way to put it. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah.
Will HCG's single specialty focus become the norm? Or will it spark a whole new conversation about how to deliver specialized care within, a more integrated system?
Yeah, it's a big question, one we probably can't answer right now, but definitely something to keep in mind as we watch this all unfold. So for our listener out there, the one who's been with us this whole time absorbing all this info about HCG, what would you say is the big takeaway here? What should they be paying attention to as they watch HCG and the Indian healthcare market evolve?
I think a few things stand out. HCG is a company that isn't afraid to innovate, to push the boundaries of what's possible. They're embracing technology, they're personalizing treatment, and they're making really smart moves to set themselves up for continued growth.
And they're very focused on delivering value for patients and investors, which is like a winning combo. But they're operating in a complex and ever-changing market, right? So there are definitely going to be challenges along the way.
Oh, absolutely. So, as you follow their journey, watch how they handle those challenges, how they adapt to the changing healthcare landscape, and how they continue to use their strengths to really make a difference in the fight against cancer.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, really insightful. I hope you've enjoyed it. But as always, we encourage you to explore the source material yourself. Dig into those investor presentations, the financial statements, draw your own conclusions.
Yeah, there's always more to learn, and we've only just scratched the surface today.
So until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.